best Nollywood movies and series will be coming home to Netflix. Watch King of Boys 2, Rattlesnake, Ghetto, Castle and Castle 2, and more amazing titles coming this season. Nollywood is home. Download and sign up today on Netflix.com. Welcome to Red Villa Luxury Hotel. Oh, thank you. Can I have the penthouse suite, please? Excellent choice, sir. That will be... I said it. This place is finer than my pocket. Not at all, sir. We have rooms that will suit your pocket. Madam, my pocket size is light too. Light pocket, medium or mega pocket. We have what you need. Just like Airtel, with data packages like 200 Naira for 200 megabytes and up to 3,000 Naira for 10 gigabytes, we have the right fit for your pocket. So dial star 141 hash now to pick your size
With story 8, don't you think you guys should consider resuming remote?
Not working. Are you not tired of working remotely?
Yeah. Think about it. It's way more convenient.
It's not actually.
It's not? Are you sure?
No. For us, it's not. For you, it is.
Okay. So data, if the numbers are really going up as well, not as this year, as we can all see, Sha.
I think it's expected because it's winter.
I don't know how serious. Do we have winter in this house?
No, we don't. But I mean, we have IGGBs bringing it down here.
God, you don't want to hear from my lawyer if I contract COVID here.
No, Lord. Nobody got COVID here.
Jeez.
When during the pandemic, you were doing Zoom, right?
Yeah.
The challenges with Zoom the challenges are very.
Some people often have bad.
Yes.
Network.
Guys, I want to see you.
We're good now.
Oh, my headphones. No headphones for me?
Okay, that's it. Right.
Okay. Now let's check YouTube sound.
You ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Can you hear it?
I can hear it's loud.
It's in the news. Hear that? Headlines, headlines.
Good morning. It is Smooth 98.1. My name is Lakumi, and of course, Kylie Baker is here.
Yes, good morning, Lagos. If you just joined us, you're just in time. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981, and this is where we bring you detailed analysis of stories making rounds in the dailies this morning.
Yes, you can join the conversation by sending a message to 0809 444 0981. We have stories lined up for you. You can check our WhatsApp status and our Instagram stories for the headlines for this morning. Again, 0809 444 0981. And we're joined by our able analysts, Vic Copes, Tunde Okufe.
Morning, Lakumi. Morning, Kari.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for
It's
joining
good
us.
to see Big Coach, right? He's wearing.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it.
Kaide cannot get over your look. Kaide
I
gets
haven't
over
seen
it.
him forever.
Yeah, we haven't seen him forever. So
We're also joined by Mr. C. Hello, Mr. C. Good morning.
Good morning, Lakumi. Good morning, Kadi. Good morning, Tunde. Good morning, Lagos.
Thank you for joining us, Lagos. Let's just get into the stories. Our first story for this morning: electricity banking evasion top 21 consumer complaint chart. That's from the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. They say that electricity has again topped its 2021 consumer-related complaints chart, just like in 2022 or 2020. Apologies. I'm going to take this quickly. The Chief Executive Officer of the Commission, Mr. Babatunde Erukera, he says that the Commission received and completed the processes of no fewer than 32,000 consumer-related complaints in this year. What do you make of this, Mr. C?
Okay, thank you, Lakumi. So, in the year 2021 that is about to end, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission received over 32,000 complaints from an four of the biggest categories were telecoms, aviation, banking, and electricity. Power was on top. Now, it's very clear. We understand why these categories will be on top. The provision of public power services has been epileptic at best, and there have been several complaints from non-metering to crazy bills being issued to downtimes when the national transmission grid collapses, to all sorts of local issues like your local transformer down the road going bad. Now, interestingly, the Commission has been able to resolve about 80% of the total number of complaints received. That is 24,000 complaints were successfully dealt with. Kudos to them, that's a very good job.
Yeah.
But there's still room for improvement. Now, beyond this, they've also highlighted the aviation sector as another problematic sector. And they explained that beyond the technical and operational issues that all of the airlines face, there's a common thread running through all of them, which is a lack of transparency, a reluctance to refund money as soon as they realize they're not going to fly. And for anyone who's listening, some of us would have had this experience. You buy your ticket online, you pay via your bank card, you get to the airport, for whatever combination of reasons, the flight isn't going anymore, they're not taking off, and then you want a refund, and then you hear something along the lines of, if you paid electronically, that is the same medium through which you will be repaid. And then they require, depending on the airline, they require a minimum of 7 working days to the most incredulous 21 working days with no interest. So when I said there was room for improvement, they need to continue to engage the airlines, and the airlines need to understand clearly that the regulatory space has changed. The culture of impunity is gradually coming to an end. Now, even with the telecom sector and banking, with the banking sector, we get all sorts of funny complaints. Monies illegally deducted from accounts, charges not being properly computed, and the like. And in 2022, we would like to see increased synergy between the Commission and the respective commercial entities with a view to ensuring that the rights of consumers are continually protected. And consumers need to be continuously educated and enlightened about the existence of this commission and its powers, because it would appear that some part of the population isn't aware the commission exists. Another part is not sure what their powers are or where their reach stops. So it's room for continued enlightenment, continued engagement, and then we hope that in 2022 we'll have reduced complaints, hopefully, and more successes. Tunde?
Yeah. I was going to say, I've actually, when you were, speaking about, a lot of people not knowing, I've reached out to them. I've had, as a consumer, naturally, I had a problem with my ISP. Couldn't, and I was resorted to calling them out on social media, reaching out to consumer protection.
Yes.
I got no response. By the way, so even
you got no response.
Yes, I got no response from them.
So even they need work internally.
Okay, so they do have a process. Did you go through the process? They have a form where in the form you're able to no, this is also to educate our listeners, in case for those who may want to complain. You can go to their website. It is FCCPC.org.
It's also the point where I had to call out the leader, is it the MD they call him, or I forget his name, the CEO. His name, we share a common first name, but I got no response.
Okay, all right.
All right, let's move on to our next story real quick. Don't forget, guys, you can send messages to 0809-444-0991 if you've complained at some point, just like Sunday has, or you've got something related to share with us. That said, though, this story comes from the Vanguard newspaper. It says, troops arrest wanted IPOB/ESN leader in Enugu and recover arms. Like I mentioned, it's from the Vanguard newspaper. So, Tunde, this comes to you. And, okay, so here's the thing, right? Okay. Well, here's the thing, Tunde. I want to ask this question. What does this mean for, the federal government? And also, how are the IPOP group going to, react to this?
Okay. Well, what does it mean? It's a major scalp, because we've all heard, it's a very short story, to be honest, and very thin on details, but we all know, at least have heard of Godwin Nnamdi, Nnamdi, sorry, Godwin Nnamdi. And we've heard a lot about him, almost, especially if you look at it, if you consider IPOB, and you think of Nnamdi Kanu, you think of Nnamdi Kanu more as the political face, although he's not in politics, but shall I say maybe more the charisma of it, and you think of Gordon Nnamdi as the arm, the strong arm of IPOB. So he's, he's very notorious in that regard. And I say notorious, I mean, well, known. He's prominent within the organization. So this is a major win and a major scalp from the federal government's perspective. What they do, as happens very often in groups like this, is replaced by someone, who deputizes him, someone from the ranks. Sometimes, unfortunately, we realize that when prominent leaders are replaced like that, the next guy is a lot more notorious, than the previous guy, and a lot more radical. And you find out that the leadership has been the ones who've been taming and trying to keep some of the more radical elements in place. So we hope we don't get one of those. And that's just speaking to what Cardi is asking, what does this mean, for us? So let's hope that the next guy doesn't have, more radical ideas. They have, I mean, from their perspective, they have, legitimate grouses and legitimate claims, but you may dispute or not appreciate the way they go about it. Violence should never really be, I'd prefer dialogue and engagement over, an armed struggle any day, because, armed struggles and war are terrible and are the worst thing. So it's significant. It happened on Christmas Day, so that's a Christmas gift for the federal government.
It's a win for the federal
this,
government.
Maybe they were too busy eating chicken and didn't know that we're going to there was going to be any operations, but it is what it is. And the arms recovered, the story says arms recovered, it's barely a stash of arms. It was one AK-47 rifle and I think one magazine with 21 rounds in it. So all in all, it's in terms of, look, these guys are persecuting an armed struggle against the Federal Republic, so you can say against Nigeria in a sense, even if some may identify with some of the struggles. So this is an important win in terms of maybe slowing them down, but let's see who he's replaced with.
But we still have a lot of work to do regarding ensuring that arms don't even reach people like that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is come on. You can't even. Nobody can start to speak in terms of the struggle being over or anything being over on either side. And the call to dialogue shouldn't even just be on the IPOB side. It's the federal government too as well should maybe posturing and should be more available.
Think of better
to engage.
solutions to tackle the situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I think later stories are highlighted. Later stories are highlighted. There's a reason why people are complaining in Nigeria, if you get. So if we deal with a bit more of those issues, those socio-economic issues, then maybe there'll be less of this.
All right, thank you very much.
Remember that you can join the conversation by sending a message to 0809-444-0981, 0809-444-0981. That's the WhatsApp number. We're streaming live on YouTube as well, so do join us there and send your messages in. Next story, money lending committee to shut down businesses in enforcement drive. That's also the FCCPC story. The joint committee tackling violation of consumer rights in the money lending industry will shut down illegal businesses at the commencement of its enforcement, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection. Mr. C, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Lakumi. Now, the money lending space in Nigeria right now is like the wild west. It's totally unregulated, and it's as if there's a mass proliferation of shady entities offering loans with little or no collaterals or guarantees attached. And every day, if you check on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, there are all sorts of money lending apps springing up. Now, what this means is, because they're unregulated, they engage in all sorts of scandalous and crazy behavior. A company called Soka Loan was recently indicted by the NITD, Nigerian
Data privacy.
Yes, I'm trying to get the name. National Information Technology Development Agency. What was their offense? A subscriber who took a loan from them and defaulted in paying on the agreed date, they sent very wonderful messages to all the subscribers' phone contacts, accusing the subscriber of being a thief, a criminal, a fraudster, not the like. And they were fined 10 million and they were supposed to have been shut down. Now, that is one company that was caught. Now, what they do is because they're offering cash loans with little or no guarantees or collaterals attached, they insist you download their app and you enable the permission that allows the app to go through your
access your
phone
contacts.
contacts. Yes.
Contacts.
And then once that happens, they send all sorts of nasty messages. Now, it's good to hear and good to see that in time regulations are being drafted. But beyond that, most of these outfits don't have physical locations you can clearly identify. And you will have an entity with 3 or 4 different applications offering loans. Now, there's a laid down procedure in law for dealing with loan defaulters. It is not sending threatening and defamatory statements to their phone contacts. That is not the way to go. And for as long as this continues, they have to be shut down. If you're offering a loan, a cash loan with little or no guarantees, then that means there's a certain risk you're willing to take.
But if they don't, now I'm not saying that sending these messages are correct, but then if there is little or no guarantee as to how they will collect their loans back, how then are they supposed to go about it?
Okay, but part of it is they collect the BVNs, right?
Okay.
They collect the BVN of each subscriber. So the BVN would tell you, with the BVN, you just apply for a quick court order stating your case that this person owes me X and give me an order to find out the accounts linked to X, and where there's money in those accounts, they should be used to repay the debt. There is a provision in law. But this resort to cowboy justice is not going to work.
Sunday.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to see on this one. So first and foremost, in context, these are microloans, nano lending, right? And I'll try and be very quick and brief, and offer a rejoinder to some of Mr. C's very valid comments and concerns. It's not an unregulated space. There's a proliferation, no doubt. There's a lot of players, but that speaks to the fact that there's a lot of need, right? These are micro loans. It's not unregulated. They are all licensed. There's a national license and there's a state level license.
Including people from the Play Store that have
everyone.
The apps,
Well, that's a different thing. Anyone, if the process of putting an app on the Play Store or on any
choice of any organization.
It's even different. And those ecosystems have ways for vetting. That's not the issue. The question is, are they licensed lenders? Yes, they are, right? And who regulates them? Partly by the central bank and partly by licensing, jurisdiction. So they're licensed. That's not the issue. Most of what was raised here has to do with data privacy. And in terms of data privacy, Nigeria still is the Wild West. Our data privacy is abused in many different, spheres. Some would even argue that even BVN itself is an abuse of data privacy and how it's used and monetized, right? But their laws have been drafted and guidelines as to how people should act and behave. The process when you're dealing with microloans of sending messages to your contacts is not new to Nigeria, it's not Nigeria alone. It's called social shaming. Now, it may not be the right thing to do, and laws generally are changing.
Non-ethical.
Yes, and in this, because I was familiar with this particular case of the ones that were fined, right? They were not threatening messages, they're just telling contacts, your guy owes money, please, if you know him, tell him to pay. Again, it's done the world, it's not really, the thing. Now, the issue, because again, these are micro loans, the issue with, going to get a court order, it's driven by technology, really. So you're giving loans, small loans, at scale. It doesn't work for that sector. They deal with a certain amount of default. That's why we're going to lose a certain amount of money, right? So the process of going to go after people to collect your 20K back, it doesn't make sense, right? So you look for other means to do it. So it's not really applicable. Yeah, so my major thing with the whole thing is the whole idea of shutting down, right? By all means, people should be regulated. Dodgy operators should be brought to book. But then we have so little going on in the country that the ones that are working,
but
it shouldn't just be a big hammer
that
all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a big hammer all the time. We'll shut this down, right? Regulate them by all means. Put down those who default, because again, like I said, there are regulations. Those who step out of regulation, punish them like these guys. Although you could argue they even punish respectively because, regulations are still pretty much still fresh. But yes, they defaulted. punish them. And there should be more punishments coming. But the whole idea of we're going to shut people down, shut that down. I mean, where are people going to see the money?
Tune, no, let me quickly respond to Tune. If we're reluctant to shut down people who engage in illegal and shady behavior, the message you are sending them
Mr. C, don't misunderstand me. I said those who default.
Yeah, those who default.
Yeah, there should be penalties. Everything is not shut down. Banks default. Are they shut down?
No,
please.
that's different. No, that's different. No, so that's different, because the banks know there are provisions in the Banks and Financial Institutions Act that deal with that. For these guys, I still maintain that if they know that the gain outweighs the penalties, then there's little or no motivation to stay on a clear and narrow path.
Mr. C, let me ask Cindy one question, just in one word. How would you mentioned that they should be punished, though. What type of punishment do you think would be appropriate for such people?
They lay down, when there's regulation, it doesn't just describe how you should behave, it describes what the punishments are, which is why these guys got slammed a 10 million naira fine. I expect those kind of fines to escalate. But once again, we're focusing on the data privacy side, not even actually the lending activity that's going on. And we talk about underbank, we talk about driving the economy. It's credit that does that. And a lot of these guys are filling that gap that the government isn't filling or anyone isn't filling. Right.
All right.
Real
Sean
quick, though.
says, how do you send a message to someone that it was a guarantor in absentia? How does that even work?
Yeah,
The CBN
all of that is
and
totally wrong.
the NIITDA needs to come down hard on them, Sean. You can go on to the next story. Let's just
Okay, real quick, let's talk about what the federal government is doing, though. From the Vanguard newspaper, this comes to you today. It says federal government floats artisan scheme to supply skilled manpower to construction sector, and a couple of states are going to benefit from this. But what are your thoughts about this?
It's a good move, and I think it's good. Let's just say it's good for many different reasons. Yeah. First and foremost, focusing on that, on artisans generally. We all had this experience. The quality is low. Very often in construction, especially because this also this majorly focused on the construction sector. There are a lot of migrant artisans, so people bring in artisans from Cotonou and other parts of the continent because the belief is that they do better quality work. This also links to another story further down the line. We have poor guilds, like in terms of when I say guilds, like your guild of electricians, guild of bricklayers, that type of thing for standardization. They're very poor, so we need to do this. So this is about it's about skills training and certification. Very key certification today. You need electrical work and you call your electrician. And you don't know where that guy is. You don't know what his training. He did the informal training, got freedom, and he's doing work, right? Yeah, we don't have there's no guild and there's no certification. In certain countries, you can't change it. Let me not say you can't change it, but you can't do wiring and fitting if you're not certified to do it. It's illegal. But we have it, and we all know the dangers of doing things when you don't have the right training and certification. So it's good. What I say is good. Hopefully, it impacts on employment and making people employable. Unemployment, according to Bloomberg, unemployment figures for the year stands at 33%. That's the second highest globally, the world over. And we wonder why we have issues with banditry. We wonder why we have issues with insecurity and a bunch of other things. Half of the labor force. Over half of the labor force is either unemployed or underemployed.
Okay.
That's a crisis, guys. It's a huge crisis. So things like this are good to be able to
bridge the gap a little bit.
Exactly. And we don't have, again, pointing to that issue, we don't have to rely on migrant workers coming in from other parts of the continent because of the belief that they do better quality work.
All right. Thank you very much for that.
a message from Tunde Omis.
Tunde says, good morning, Freshly Pressed and Conference of the Season. Those online predators don't stop at just sending derogatory messages. They also seize BVNs and also forcefully deduct from such accounts. All right. Thank you very much for that.
Next story here. NNPC remittance to Federation account slumps to 8.5% of projected payment. Mr. C.
Thank you, Lakumi. So, very quickly, the NNPC was projected to remit a sum of 2.09 trillion into the federal treasury this year. However, so far, they've only been able to remit the sum of 511.66 billion. Now, that is way short of the target. And it's only explains the economic part of the economic difficulties we're facing this year, especially with regards to revenue. And it explains why the states have been constantly in some credit squeeze, because the amounts that are due to be allocated between the federal government, the state governments, and the local governments continue to shift and change from month to month. Now, in the month of April, the NNPC did not remit a single naira to the federal treasury. Now, in the same period, the NNPC has recovered or under recovered a sum of 1.027 trillion. So under recovery is the new name for petrol subsidy. But they're calling it under recovery because in the budget, there's no provision for that. So they found a technical term. Now, it's a very bad sign for the economy and for the country generally if the amount of money NNPC is able to remit is far short of the projection. And it then begs the question, was this taken into account, into consideration when drawing up next year's budget? I don't know. I haven't checked. Now, if the NNPC is increasingly finding it difficult to meet a substantial part of its target in remitting money into the federal treasury, what does that say for the fate of the Nigerian public worker in certain states? Right now, there are about 4 or 5 probably solvent states. The rest are heavily dependent on federal allocations. And when those allocations do not come at all or do not come on time, then there are problems. In Ekiti State, the governor was saying that he's reduced the subvention due to the Ekiti State University as a result of the dwindling cash allocations. So it's food for thought, but also to the governors. You were elected to make life better. Put on your thinking caps. Consult the private sector. Consult people like Tunde. They have the plans. They have the strategies. Talk to them. But this is a bad sign, and it's more reason why we need to remove our dependence on oil and grow the non-oil sectors of the economy, like services. Britain is an economy that largely does services. Manufacturing, we have a challenge with that because we have power issues, and until we get
those issues,
until we get the required level of investment into the power sector, let's focus on services.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. C. Real quick, let's move on to our next story, and this one comes to you today. It says from the Vanguard newspaper: tension in foods drink sector over expatriate quota abuse. And the story goes on and on, really. Here's another problem in this sector. What are the causes, and then also what can the solutions be?
Well, I mean, the causes are. I mean, let's start with what issues. And related to the previous one that I spoke about, in terms of people doing jobs that Nigerians can do. So the story is quite simple. It says that a number of, as a business, you can bring in an expatriate, a foreigner, to do a highly skilled job that you cannot. The caveat is that you cannot find in Nigeria.
To do in Nigeria.
Right, that's the caveat. Now the issue is how well is this enforced, and how enforceable is it? I would like to say that it should be enforceable. There should be better standards or standardization. How do you estimate that this job, one, is highly skilled and specialized, and two, how do you determine that no Nigerian exists that can do that job? Right, and I think that needs to be tied into the visa process and the visa renewal process. So I think policing it can be a lot better, but we know, as always, that there are gaps and there's bottom line, there's corruption in the system, right? Quite simply. Now, these are not, in terms of, it's important because, I mean, like I said earlier, over half of the labor force is underemployed or unemployed.
Yeah.
But these numbers that we're talking about, I mean, they're in the hundreds. They will not make a significant dent, but it is still important, especially for Nigerians who are in these organizations looking to progress up the career ladder, looking to obtain. It's also the other reason why you bring expatriates in is also for skills and knowledge transfer.
Yes.
You keep bringing expatriates in, then you don't train and upskill the indigenous people. Bringing expatriates in to do a job should not be in perpetuity. There should be a process of upskilling and knowledge transfer. Yeah, really, that's the long and short of it. And yeah, the complaints about abuses in this, and that it needs to be tightened up a lot more, and that obviously naturally that is a source of income or drain, FX drain on the country as well.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Tunde. Biodun Yusuf doesn't agree that he says a lot of these loan lenders, money lenders, are not regulated. It says they said those loan apps charges as much as 60% flat for a 14 days loan. Which regulator authorized that? Few of them backed by MFB are regulated. Others are simply not. Kunle or Debbie, thank you so much for your message. And thank you to everybody who has joined the conversation this morning. You can continue the conversation online. Still send us your messages because the video is going to remain on YouTube. So if you get there and you're able to watch, please drop your comments. We want to know what you think of all those stories. You can also join us on social media. It is Smooth981. Of course, you can communicate with our analysts. Tunde is at Big Coofs and Mr. C is Mosio CEEE. That's triple E, right? Correct? Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
All right, Lagos, there's more to come in a few more minutes. Lagos Talks 981 kicks in, where you, Lagos, get to, share with us your intimate thoughts concerning the stories we just discussed right here on Freshly Pressed 981. So please stay with us.
That money lending one took too much time. People don't understand the difference between. No. I don't because it's a second industry. It's a second industry that I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's financial technology, so I understand it and understand it well.
Okay.
Right. And we actually even offer a service, not as a lender, but for people who lend.
Okay.
Right. So people get it wrong. It's not unregulated. It is regulated, and to get licensing is quite difficult. Now, if someone has, so the general space, and then you'd find people play different, sectors. So you're a lending company.
Okay.
You have this pool, and you can decide which angle you play. There's something called subprime loans.
Okay.
You're lending to people who are on the edge. It's risky to lend to them, but they're desperate. They need the loans. Therefore, some will look at it when you're on the consumer end. When you're on the consumer end, it's easy to look at and say, oh, these people are opportunistic and taking advantage of people with the kind of rates that he mentioned.
Yes.
But guess what? You're a risky individual. I'm taking a lot of risk on you.
Yeah,
so obviously, where there's higher risk, there should be higher reward.
Yes.
Right? Naturally. What you should do as an individual, not to be subject to those kind of loans, is maybe improve your conditions. And it's not the fault of the guy who's offering you the loan.
Yeah, but what the story now is saying is that how do they need to regulate them?
No, so that's the thing. That's it. We can't regulate businesses to death. That's what we do here. That's why innovation doesn't exist. These rates, people have rates like this abroad as well. What you should do is make sure that people are not being taken advantage of. And that's very important. And you can do that. But when you can't say, oh, you can't do rates like this, you kill the business. You kill innovation, you kill things. You can't over-regulate. You cannot regulate people into innovation and regulate industry into regulation.
If I refuse to pay the loan, right? I refuse to pay the loan. Like you gave me 10K, it's just normal 10K I can pay, right?
Yeah.
But I just refuse. I just refuse to pay. How do you want without sending messages?
Without what?
Without sending those derogatory messages.
Yeah. So again, that's why they started sending the derogatory messages, and it didn't start here. We took it from, you look at Latin America and other markets. That's really where those kind of things started, because it's a social, people value their social network. They're giving an uncollateralized loan.
Okay.
They're not telling you to bring your grandmother's tooth or hair. Do you understand? They've given you money. The hold they have on you is probably through that kind of social link and network.
Yes.
But so attitudes are changing. So people are saying, oh, come on now, it's not right. So something that started a while ago is now changing, and people are modifying, right? And saying, okay, this, besides, data privacy is now a big thing. It wasn't a big thing maybe 10 years. It has always been important, but it's now really changing or catching up to match the digital age.
The social media world.
So so things are changing. So to your question as to how do they, without social shaming, how do they collect their money back? The truth is, they've worked this in that they'll lose money. That's the truth.
Okay.
They will lose money. So Coyote doesn't pay back. We'll try to collect our money back from Coyote, but the truth is that it's the skill or the trick The magic is in before. Have we profiled Coyote correctly and well
To know whether
to
he's
know
going to
whether
pay back.
Coyote will pay back or not? Do you understand? So if they miss that, they've missed, and they sort of need to go and rework that to make sure they get it right. Now, for those that they don't get right, they will try whatever means are possible, but that are not too expensive. Social shaming, okay, you can't do it anymore, right?
Okay.
But what other methods can they do? So they build defaults into it. They know. That's why if they're playing in a particularly risky sector, interest rates will be high.
I think
But
should
do they
record.
really threaten contacts?
No,
Because
no,
some
no.
people
No,
are saying
I've seen it.
these
No,
loan
no,
apps
not
borrow
that.
you 20K to
I have
pay
a housekeeper.
32K. Just let me read
They-
Tomiwa's
No, 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 no.
message.
Let's
Let me
not
read
go for no.
Tomiwa's
I have a
message. Let me
housekeeper
read
that sends
Tomiwa's
me a
message.
message.
Please let me read Tomiwa's message. He's our
They
listener.
threatened him.
He says these loan apps borrow you 20K to pay 32K in
This
40
is
days.
ridiculous.
And if you didn't pay on that day, I am not lying. That day by 3 p.m. or the next morning, messages are sent to people threatening their contacts.
You know, the truth is, I mean, I'm not a representative for anyone.
What kind of threats
right?
do
Yes,
they
yes.
do they
So
receive?
Yes,
the
I've
truth
seen
is,
messages
the
before
truth
like
is that I mean, anyone that does that should be. In that one, I don't agree. They should shut them down.
No,
Penalties
so
should be
wait,
shut down.
no, listen. AAA with phone number XXX is a dubious and chronic getter.
Wow.
She is on the run with different loan companies' money.
wow.
She has refused taking calls or responding to messages. This act will lead to serious legal actions, after which she'll be handed over to the authority for breach of contract.
But why are people
Inform
like
her
this?
to
Why-
pay
how
back
do you
her
take
loan
a
to
loan and you
avoid
refuse to
further
pick your call?
No, why
embarrassment
do you know
for
that the
herself
person has the
and her
money to
family.
pay back?
No.
No, but
What a
this
taking
this
a
I
loan.
have
This one
problems.
on-
Let me bust your brain.
I have problems
I've-
with this because it's not
Yeah.
exact. This is not social shaming.
This one is straight up
Absolutely
threats.
unprofessional.
I've read reports
Kunle
where
says he
on
owes
the
you a drink. They are too good. So
I've
too
read
correct.
reports where on the day of repayment, you got the money through the app. For some reason, you can't pay back through the app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go into default.
Your own banks
You're
and
calling your
everything.
supposed account officer or loan officer, whatever designation individual answers to, and he's posting you. The moment you go into default, your pastor, your parents, people you revere and respect,
Yeah.
are
I
calling
agree.
you
I
down.
have issues with messages like this. The key thing for me, and people shouldn't lose the overall message, is don't throw out the baby with the bath water, right?
How would you protect?
Now-
Now, I have a question for you. How would you protect? You said they need to be protected. I agree
Are
completely.
these companies insured as well?
How would you do that?
Okay, so
How would
now,
you recommend it?
okay, so now exactly, and it's in the profiling and targeting. So one protection and things that happen in other markets is target specifically vulnerable people, because some people are specifically vulnerable, right? And you know that they can't pay back, right? Don't target those people. So be more. It's more around ethics, right? And if you keep, if you give a loan to someone that can't pay back, if the person doesn't pay you back, take it as your luck and move on.
True.
Don't start going after them. You target someone who is
Take it as your
specifically
luck.
vulnerable. Do you understand? So those are kind of things that can be watched and can be protected a bit more. That's not happening. So back to the point, of not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, is that honestly, we've gotten the word's not testimony or messages, sorry, messages from people who said that if not for this loan facility or this loan app, I'll not be able to run, I'll not be able to feed my family. They used to run business, do small scale trading. Honestly, yeah, and they're filling a credit gap that large insurance can't do. The large insurance can't do it because the way of doing it is very manual. We need to go and get a credit report. The credit report alone is maybe it's going to take like 3K to profile someone. The guy wants 5K. He wants 10K. It doesn't make sense. You need to be able to profile someone on the pennies, on the cobbles. It should be cheap. A couple naira, under 100 naira to profile someone and say, do you know what, we can give you a loan. All he wants to collect is 10K. With the fees and he pays back, or he wants to collect is 20K. But when you have a 5,000 naira process to profile someone, it's never going to happen. So these are micro loans done at scale.
Well, the same page, I agree that they are good eggs, and I wasn't speaking about the good eggs. It's the criminals amongst them.
No.
Because
Guys, we gotta go. So thank you to you too, please.
I say this because
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for
I
joining
say
us.
this because if all of us take a loan and we refuse to pay